What's up, everybody? I'm Gio, and welcome back to Carvalho Creations, where I show you how to make awesome props and projects of your own. Now, because so many of you guys requested this build, in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to create Pinhead from Hellraiser. Now, when it comes to character design, especially classic monsters like this, the 80s and 90s to me were top-notch, and everything that came out of that era was amazing. So when I went to go ahead and do this character, I wanted to make sure I took my time and did him justice, and I think we did just that. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to create the armature itself, that classic Pinhead pose, and of course the detailed paint for the entire character. This is a pretty loaded video, so why don't you get nice and comfortable, because we're about to go wild. Alright, what's up everybody? So today we're making Pinhead from Hellraiser, and I want to go over the material list so you guys are going to know what you're going to need to get this guy going. Now, first and foremost, to make the armature itself today, we're going to be needing some 2x4. And these particular 2x4, I have them pre-cut to about 67 inches in length because they're going to come about shoulder height. And I'm going to have just small scrap pieces for bracers in between the 2x4s to hold them together. And then you're going to need a plywood base. This is a 3/4 inch plywood base. It's about 20 by 20 inches. And then also bunch of material to get his clothing looking right. You're gonna need scissors. We're gonna be using some 16 gauge wire for the hands. Now I'm not gonna go over in detail how I do the hands. I may show you a separate way to do hands in this video, but if you're interested in that, make sure you check out our easy do-it-yourself prop hands video, which is already up. It's been up for about a year. It's a great video, so definitely go check it out. But when you're done with this one, of course. As far as tools, you're gonna need a jigsaw. We're gonna be using a heat gun today, some kind of drill, using some spray adhesive. We're gonna use a little bit of upholstery foam today. Definitely gonna need yourself a glue gun and an X-Acto knife of some kind. And then I might, like I said with the hands, I might show you another trick with the hands if it works out, because I'm testing it right now as I'm filming. So we'll see if this great stuff's worked for some really cool hands. But this is gonna be a really cool build. I've been trying to get this one done for a while now. I have a lot of you guys have been requesting Pinhead from Hellraiser, so today is your lucky day. So without any further ado, why don't we get in that mood to go wild? All right, to start off today's build, I'm going to be using these 2x4s that I cut out at 67 inches in length. And like I said earlier, it's going to get me to about shoulder height. And then I'm screwing this top bracer, and this 2x4 is cut at about 12 inches. And then I have this one that's going to be in the center to split the boards, and that's going to be cut at about 8 inches. And I'm just screwing everything together. And then I'll be screwing this base plate in place as well. And I'm pre-drilling all the holes so I don't have any splits in the wood when I do this. And then just using, I think I'm using 1.5-inch screws here to put that base plate on. Also now I'm taking some 2x2s and screwing them to the 2x4s as well. What this is going to do is strengthen that base a little bit so there's no wobble. That's also going to give me more surface area to screw more screws from the bottom in, so this thing is structurally sound when I go to stand it up. And here I'm taking my half-inch PVC pipe. I'm cutting it about 21 inches in length. And then I pre-drilled the holes here in the wood to create the arms. Now I'm using 2 screws per PVC. That way it holds its shape really well. I'm just taking some chicken wire here and wrapping it around before I start heating up my PVC pipe here. And this bottle just has regular water in it. So I heat the plastic up. And once I bend it, then I use my water to cool it down quickly so it retains that shape as much as possible. Now, when you guys are doing your own props at home, to really make them look realistic, you want to go ahead and just look at the positioning of characters that you're trying to create. Another really good thing to do is just stand in front of a mirror and kind of pose your body and then try to replicate that as much as possible when you go to making these structures. I think the biggest thing people have issues with when they're making their characters and making them look realistic is the pose. Because once it gets really unnatural looking, that's when you get it looking fake, and you want this guy to be looking as real as possible. Now here to build up some of this character, I'm just using some pool noodles, and then I'm also using upholstery foam with some spray adhesive just to attach it temporarily until I get that monster mud over the top. But I'm building up this structure. Now Pinhead's pretty thin, so I don't have to worry about building up too much. It's just to get a little padding on his body so he looks more realistic at the end. Also, too, I'll be taking strips of small strips of this upholstery foam and going over the shoulders as well to make it look more natural also. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see me. I wanted to show you another little tip and trick that I just was thinking about as I was creating this guy here today and filming. I thought, you know what? It'd be a really cool if I could make a foam hand using just a latex glove, and kind of similarly how I do my other hands, I just took a piece of cardboard here, hopefully you guys can see that, and then I just cut out some wire to represent each finger and then glued it down to the cardboard. And then what I'm gonna do is, because this great stuff here kicks with moisture with water, I'm gonna take my latex glove and I'm just gonna spritz some water in here. All right, I wanna make sure you get into all the fingers, into every area here. It's gonna help you also peel off this glove when you're finished. Making sure there's water in every finger. And it doesn't need to be a ton, just make sure it's there. And then I'm gonna go ahead and put the glove on this cardboard here. Also too, I just wanna make sure to let you guys know, I did put a little bit of masking tape around the wire here for the fingers, just to prevent it from tearing through the glove. Okay, so now that I have that little hand inside this glove here, I'm just gonna bend the fingers around to get the position I want. Okay, so now that I have the position roughly about what I want, I'm gonna go ahead and take my foam now, and I'm gonna take the little hose, make sure I get it. Oh, I broke that one, so let's pause real quick.
A few moments later.
All right, let's try that again. So now that I have my hand all posed about what I want, I'm gonna take the nozzle end, I'm gonna stick it down into the fingers and just start spraying my foam. I wanna make sure I work it all the way down into the fingers and then spray as I come up. It's a tip too. If you guys are using this and you want to save it, you can bend the pole over on itself and there's like a little nozzle to hold it on there, and that'll save your foam. But what I wanted to show you is this little hand here. Now I haven't got it down perfectly because I've only done this once this morning, but it's kind of a cool way to make a little foam hand. So now, if I need to, I can bend these fingers a little more to get the position I want. So they're a little bit better, and then I can hang it over something to dry so it's a little more curled the way I need it to be. But I did this one this morning, and you know, as the fingertips here, so I was telling you, you gotta push that nozzle down in here. This here didn't foam up as well, but I'm gonna shave these down and then put some foam clay over the top of it just to finish it off. But that's a pretty cool and easy hand. And these things dry quick too. Now we're gonna see how this one turns out. It'll probably be a little bit better because I shot a little more foam in there. But once this gets shaved down, I put the foam on it. It's got the pose there. I can glue that right to my prop and be perfect. So just another little easy way to use great stuff and make cheap and easy foam hands for your props. Let's get to the rest of the build. All right, so to finish off the foam hands, I'm just using this foam clay, and I'm just gonna skin over the top of this to cover a lot of this. Now, my hands tend to turn out a little fat because I don't shave down the foam enough to make them look more realistic. So just a little tip for you guys, shave down your foam extra thin, so when you go to skin over with your foam clay, they look more realistic as far as the size here. Now, because this foam clay swells, a lot of times when I do these hands, I lose a lot of detail in the nails. So I went ahead and bought some Dollar Tree nails. You can see them sitting on the table there. And I'm just gonna press those into place while I work on this hand to make a more realistic fingernail. And you know, it really came out great. For a buck, it was a great addition to this sculpt. And then I'll go ahead and cut those down at the end. I'm always trying new things to see what works, and this was definitely something that works. So use this in the future. Okay, so I wanted to just show you guys how I prep my styrofoam head before I begin my sculpt. First and foremost, I always dig out the eyes so I can use my plastic eyes and glue them in place. Now for Pinhead, he has more of a flat nose, so I shaved the nose down flat so I can sculpt around that. And then I dug out the area for the mouth and then inset some hot glue teeth. Now, I had explained to you in some older videos about some teeth trays, so I ended up buying some from Amazon. These were like $4, super cheap. And these are actually ice trays but they'll do the trick. I mean, they didn't really hold a lot of detail, so I'm gonna have to go back in here and just sculpt a little more detail in the teeth. But they worked out pretty well. They're nice placeholders, and I mean, for $4 for this, it's not too bad, and I'll definitely be using it in the future. So just want to show you guys a little prepped here before we start with our sculpt today, but let's get to the sculpt. All right, so to start our sculpt, I always start with the eyes. It just really centers the character for me, and it gets me a good basis to start from. But with Pinhead, it's not like a typical monster creation like I usually make. It's just a regular guy with just the striations in his head and his face for the pins and the cut marks. But he's just a regular dude. So the biggest thing that I was worried about with this sculpt is making sure I got that sneer, that kind of growling looking face and expression, so he looks as much like the character as possible. So I'm just kind of building up the structure a little bit as first here before I start pressing any really real detail. But Pinhead, like I said, he's just a regular dude, so I'm not really over exaggerating too many of the features. I'm just kind of pushing everything into place. Now I'm going to be skinning this entire foam head over the top, so I get a very even look at the end, and when I paint everything, there's no seams and it doesn't look like it's on a foam head itself. So I'm just taking my sculpting tool here and just kind of going at it. If you guys are starting with sculpture, and if you're intimidated with it, it's just really about getting your hands dirty and starting. Most of this sculpt is done all by hand, and I just do very little amounts of work with the actual sculpting tool. So if you guys are worried about your sculptures, just get into them. It's all about practice and repetition. Okay, so before we begin with the monster mud process, I just want to give you guys a little more detailed look at the hands and the face. So I did the sculpture yesterday, and I actually used, you guys saw me press these little, these Dollar Tree press-on nails into the sculpture of the hands, and it worked out so much better. I really like the way it looks. I still had to go and put a little bead of hot glue underneath the nails, just so they stick, because they weren't sticking to the foam itself. But you want to put them in place while you're sculpting so they create this little ridge here that looks more natural. Also, too, with the face, one of you guys down in the comments, and I can't remember who, if I can find the comment, I'll go ahead and link it down below. But they said, because I have such an issue with the foam expanding as it dries and losing a lot of detail, one of you guys told me, oh, you can go back and carve it up with the Dremel. So I did that this time, and I brought back a lot more of that detail. So I'm definitely going to be doing that in the future for future projects. So whoever that was, thank you so much. But this is the prep work. As far as the hands, I used a little bit of spray foam and some duct tape just to attach it to our PVC pipe for both hands here, but these are ready to go. So now we're going to start cutting our strips for our monster mud and getting to that next step. To begin the monster mud process, when I do these characters, I like to start from the base and work my way upward, so when I layer the material, it looks more realistic. But for this guy, because he has that weird, let's be real, it's a leather dress that he's wearing, right? I went ahead and I stapled the base of that dress and pulled it tight away from the wood structure, so it looks more like a flowing dress as opposed to seeing the underlayment of the actual wood itself. And then here I'm just taking the material and I'm pulling it tight and stapling it to the armature as I go. You're not going to see the staples at the end, so it's not a problem. But I just wanted to give that overall look to the character before I went on to the next step. Also, this is the first layer of monster mud. I do go back and do another layer just to add a little more depth and form to it as well. And to add the openings, I guess, in his costume, I'm just drawing out where I'm going to be placing my foam clay to create that skin that's exposed in his costume. So I'm just drawing it out haphazardly with the pencil just so I have an idea of where it's going to be. And I'm taking my foam clay here and just pressing it into place to create that flesh. I found this to be the easiest way to do this. So you just let that first layer of monster mud dry, and then go back in with your foam. Similarly to what we did with the pumpkin and also the candy corn creation, same thing. But this works out really well. And then what I'm going to do after I get these sections all placed and about where I want them to be, I'm going to go ahead and create with more foam just a little ridge that goes around all these little openings to make it look like it's material sitting over flesh. So there's going to be a little ridge here. So I'm just circling around these flesh portions that I put in to create something that looks like material from clothes. Now once everything gets painted with monster mud, once this foam clay dries, it's going to weatherproof this, and it's also going to blend everything together, so you're not going to see any seams. It's going to look really good at the end. And you can take your time with this if you guys are starting to do your characters. You know, honestly, devil's in the detail, right? So all the stuff that you guys do, you really want to push the accessories. You really want to take time and press in more detail and give yourself more to work with, so your overall result in your characters are so much better. Also too, with this foam clay, I did go ahead and tear out sections where the flesh of his chest are exposed, and I did that off camera. And then here, when you guys are making your characters too, another thing that I like to think about is in 3D. So you want to go and look at the sides of your characters and make sure that everything is kind of fleshed out so it doesn't look flat. Now when I turn this guy to the side, you know, he looked like 2x4s in the back, so I wanted to cover that up with a little more upholstery foam. And then I pulled this material and stapled it down to flare it out a little bit also. And then for the shoulders, to give him more structure and form in his shoulders and his back, I put more upholstery foam and then skinned over that with another layer of monster mud. This just creates more form, looks more natural, and then it sells the character a lot more at the end. And in the second here, I'll just be taking more monster mud and brushing it over all that exposed foam, and you can see exactly where I pulled some of that foam down to create that torn flesh. And then I'm going to be taking some 16 gauge wire cut down into little hook shapes and hot gluing those into place, and the hot glue also doubles as like dripping blood. And here to create the blades, I'm using 5mm craft foam. This is a really simple and easy way to add a lot more depth and accessories to your characters. He definitely needed this to make it feel like Pinhead. And I'm just cutting this with a straight edge and an X-Acto knife. And then I'll be cutting little ridges along the blades to create that serrated edge as well. And all this is going to get hot glued together and then glued onto the actual structure itself. Okay, so I want to just give you a little detailed look at the character before we go to the paint. Now our monster mud is all dry, and just a little close up here of the, I guess his knives and weapons or whatever. So this is basically, I just used 5mm craft foam, cut this up in sections, and then stringed it to his belly button here. And then I put everything in hot glue. Also, I put the hooks on his chest because from the pictures, it looks like it's torn flesh and then hooks around it. This guy's kind of a weird bondage kind of character, so went ahead and did all that. So this guy's all dry. Also, for the Pandora's box here, I just got myself a little bit of foam and made a little cube out of it, and then I'll go ahead and paint this at the end. But this also has monster mud over the top of it too, and it'll sit right here in his hand at the end. But this character is pretty much done as far as the majority of the build. Now we're just going to get to the paint. So I'm going to coat this with just a latex black paint to get us a nice base to work off of, and then we'll go ahead and start with the detail. And we'll add those pins at the very end. All right, to start off, like I said, I'm just going to be using some black latex paint to coat this entire character. I'm always thinking about the longevity of pieces too when I'm making them, so even though the monster mud is really good and it'll last you quite a few years if you treat it right and cover it on the off season, I want to add as many coats of protection as I possibly can. So the black latex paint is definitely going to help to protect that monster mud. And then I do go over all my paint with a spar urethane rated for outdoor use as well. And here I'm just taking my airbrush now and starting to do some of the details. So I'm painting just a pure white over the head, hands, and chest, making sure not to get too much overspray in the mouth because I want that to remain black. But you want to make sure you give yourself a nice even coating with this first base color so everything is even before you go on to the next step. And then here, even though the costume is black and it seems like you can just leave it that way, to add a little more depth to the character, I like to pop out some of those high ridges that would catch the most light. That way it just gives more depth to the character, it makes it seem more realistic. And here I'm just taking like a nice navy blue color. It's a little watered down, so I'm just starting to push in some of that depth from that sculpt that we did earlier and starting to really bring this character to life. I'm going to go back in after I get this first layer done with like a mauve color, just to deepen in some of those striations in the head from the cuts, and to really start to bring this guy to life and make him look like Pinhead. And as you can see from here, it's already starting to do that. And I take that same color with the hands and the chest, and you'll see here in a second, and I just kind of brush it over the nails and into the depth of the fingers here, just to give them a little more color, make them feel more alive. And then I'll take this, like I said, to this torn area in the chest as well, and just try to make it look more gross. Then I'm going to go ahead and take a straight black because I want him to have that demonic look that Pinhead is known for. So I'm just painting that straight black into the eyes and then the inside of the mouth to really give some contrast to the character. And then I'm also going to be taking this yellow color and staining over his teeth to make him look a little more wicked. And then here I'm using a very simple dry brush technique with some metallic silver and also a bronze for this little hacksaw that he has here. And then I'll be dry brushing on like a brown color for the handles itself, and then adding a little blood splatter just by flicking my brush with a little bit of that red paint. And this step right here really creates a lot more of a cool look and finished look to the character. And then to finishing everything off, I'm just going to be using my hot glue and some 1.5 inch nails, and then pressing them down about 1/4 inch all over the character just to finish them off. But we're pretty much done here, so if you guys like today's build, let me know down in the comment section below. And if there's any characters you'd like to see as well, let me know down in the comment section below. But until next time, happy haunting.
Thank you guys so much for sticking with me to the end of our video today, and I hope you enjoyed our Pinhead tutorial. I want you to start getting excited because I have so many more props and projects I'm going to be sharing with you in the very near future. We're going to be making Lock, Shock, and Barrel from The Nightmare Before Christmas, as well as Beetlejuice. So there's so many cool things coming up very soon, so make sure you're subbed down below and you hit those notification bells so you never miss a video. As always, if there's a character or creature you'd like to see me recreate in the future, or maybe you saw me use a technique you would like me to elaborate on, please write me down in the comment section below and be like, hey, Gio, can you just be a little more descriptive? And I'll be like, yeah, I can do that. But until next time, keep building things, stay creative, and don't forget to go wild. I'm Gio from Carvalho Creations, and I'll see you next time. Nipple rings, they kind of went aggressive and they ripped them, but that's okay. Okay, Lates. Bye. Bye as it Lates.